Hello guys, Danny here from Dan's Tech. In today's video guys, I'm going to be bringing you a review of the Palit JetStream GTX 1070. Now I recently took a look at this version from KFA2. This is a reference blower edition card. Does feature the blower fan, may have a plastic shroud, but this actually is a really good performer, and since it's really cheap, it's quite hard to not recommend this based on the performance you do get. So yeah, that aside, we're going to be having a look at the JetStream from Palit. Now their card does feature two really big fans and also a very large fin stack, which does make the card 2.5 slot thick. So yeah, it's not exactly a small card, but you will see why it's so big when we get onto some of the temps and also the clock rates that it's able to achieve. So yeah, we're going to jump into the review. Yeah, we're going to have a look at the overview of the card and have a look at the exterior, and then yeah, we're just going to get onto some benchmarks and also similar what I did with the KFA2 card. We're going to be bringing you some 1080p benchmarks and also some 4K benchmarks in games like Battlefield 4 and Killing Floor 2, games like that. So without further ado, let's get into it. To get started, as for a quick look at the box, the main selling point of this GPU is the fact it's been designed to really stomp out the heat. Palit are really advertising the very thick heat pipes this card has, in addition to the larger than normal fans and fin stack. Anyhow, inside the box, on top you'll find some soft foam with the GPU underneath inside an anti-static bag. You'll also find a power conversion cable included. This particular one converts two Molex connections to a single 8-pin PCIe connector for the card. Under the GPU, Palit have also included the manual, what looks to be a JetStream Tado, and a driver disk, of which you shouldn't use as these drivers are always outdated by the time you come to install the card. Onto the card, this thing isn't small. The dimensions are 28.5 by 13.3 centimeters. As for the thickness, this card is 2.5 slots, so do be aware that you'll need a motherboard with a large spacing between the first and second PCI Express x16 slot if you are wishing to buy two of these for SLI. The heatsink on this card is very large and should offer great cooling performance overall. As for the active cooling, this card features dual 100mm fans that push air downwards into the fin stack. Also worth noting, these fans spin in different directions to each other to allow for better acoustics. On top you'll also find a RGB lighting strip that lights up. You can change the colour in the software that Palit do provide on their website. Taking a closer look at the card, you can see this cooler features many heat pipes that contact the GPU chip for efficient heat dissipation. At the end of the card you can see where the larger heat pipes terminate. These things are the largest heat pipes I've personally seen on a GPU, and combining this with the very thick aluminium fin stack strapped to the card, I'm very excited to see how this card performs and really see how quiet it is while gaming. As for the supplementary power requirement of the card, there's a single 8-pin power connector on top. Palit do recommend a minimum of a 500 watt power supply, with the card ready to use up to 150 watts under full load. Also with this card sporting a GeForce GTX 1070 GPU, it does support two-way SLI and offers great upgradability in the future, something you can't say about the non-SLI-able 1060. As for some further specs, this card features 1920 CUDA cores clocked at 1506 MHz with a boost of 1683 MHz. The card features 6 gigs of GDDR5 memory sat on a 192-bit memory bus. As for the outputs, this card features a single DVI port, a single HDMI port, in addition to 3 DisplayPort outputs. Anyway, I think it's about time we install the card and get playing some games to see how it performs. Just like before when I took a look at the GTX 1070 and 1060 from Galax and Palit, I'm going to be doing some live benchmarking with the card. First up, jumping into BF4 with the high preset, this card looks to be doing very well, drawing 134 FPS average. Very respectable for a card of this price, and personally was quite impressed. Switching the graphics settings to Ultra, we do of course see a decrease in frames, however still a very healthy number at 117 FPS average, again passing my expectations for sure. And as for 4K at the high setting, the card does relatively well, pushing 71 FPS on average. Moving on to a slightly more demanding title, Grand Theft Auto 5. Running the game at high settings first with 2x MSAA, the card seems to be doing very well, pushing 95 FPS as you can see in the gameplay. Now backing out of the game and launching it up again with all the settings now maxed, but with MSAA set to ×4 instead of ×8, the card was able to push 79 FPS. Moving on to my last test at 4K with the high settings and 2x MSAA set, the card does surprisingly well, being able to push 56 FPS on average. Just like Battlefield 4, this is a very good frame rate and more than acceptable if you wish to play at 4K resolution. Next up we have Need for Speed 2016.
Now first up, we have all the settings set to high at 1080p, and with FXAA turned on, the 1070 can output 119 FPS on average. Very impressive. Now keeping it 1080p and raising the settings to maximum with TAA set, we see a decrease in frames to 105 FPS. Still a very healthy number. And finally, as for 4K, running the game at medium with HBAO and FXAA, the card was able to output 44 FPS. Onto Killing Floor 2 with the Ultra preset, the 1070 really does fly with itself, averaging 150 FPS, totally maxing out this game, which does have a hard limit of 150 FPS. Now, changing the resolution to 4K and actually keeping all these settings at max instead of lowering any of these. So yeah, keeping these at Ultra, it was able to deliver a similar result for Need for Speed 2016 and pushes out 50 FPS on average. This is very impressive for a card of this price and really does show that this card is really powerful and can push them games that are not as demanding. For both of these tests, the Nvidia Flex settings were disabled. Lastly, onto an actual synthetic benchmark. In Valley, at 1080p with the Extreme HD preset, the card was able to deliver 92 FPS on average after testing the card 3 times. That's 1 FPS higher than the reference 1070. Now, as for maximum power draw, this was 287 watts total, with the i7 4790K at 4.2 GHz and 16 gigs of memory. As for clock speeds, these were very consistent and averaging 1860 MHz, delivering some very smooth gameplay, and is quite a bit higher than the advertiser boost clock, which is very nice to see. And lastly, as for the temperatures, the card hit a maximum of 67 degrees throughout all of the testing, which is extremely low, and I think with the size of this cooler, it is, well, just overall very good. And it did stay as well extremely quiet with a fan speed of only 33%. I was very impressed with the acoustics. Anyhow, take a listen.
So guys, there you are, that was my review of the Palit JetStream 1070. Now from the reference, what you are getting essentially is a really beefy card, a really good cooling solution on the actual card, and also what you're getting is, because the cooling solution is a bit better, you are getting a substantial overclock that's been put on this card versus the reference, and another main thing as well is the noise levels. Now this card is overclocked, but I can say that it's quieter than the reference design just because of its 2 massive fans and its really big fin stack. So yeah, very high end card. Just costs a little bit more than the reference, but it's an overclock variant, stupidly quiet, and to a lot of people this card looks pretty damn good with an LED strip on the top, and also, well, just the fact it looks just really big and high end and whatnot. Yeah, there we are. But a fantastic card nevertheless, and very quiet. So yeah, it's very interesting to see that manufacturers now, with an efficient chip, they're still putting really high-end cooling solutions on, and that just in the end does result in just a really quiet gaming experience. And with me also having the Noctua NHD 15 CPU core on my i7, the thing is just really sound. It's kind of silly. There we are. So guys, that concludes my review of the 1070 from Palit, the JetStream variant. I would recommend it, and yeah, that's kind of about it. So you found all the good old Amazon links in the good old description, and you also found a link there to Palit's website to find out some further specs and some photos on the card. So without further ado guys, thank you very much for watching. Please feel free to like, comment, and also subscribe, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Goodbye.